So now we're going to move on to Chapter 1. And in Chapter 1, Miller introduced Chapter 1 by talking about the consequences of putting individuals into a box. By labeling someone a liberal or conservative, you mitigate the chance of having, a constructive argument. And, basically what that's saying is you, say you label somebody as a certain thing, it can dictate already off the bat who they vote for, who they agree with. And she gives four consequences of what happens whenever you do this, and we're going to go over those four. So the first consequence is reducing the ability to have an objective argument. She states placing blame on both parties reduce the person's responsibility to have productive communication. So, whenever you say, both parties are just as bad as she quoted, this is reducing the complication notion of objective to some vague sense of not obviously partisan. So it might, the only reason you do this is just so you can get out of the situation. So consequence number 2 is arguing down partisan lives. By engaging in this behavior, it limits discussion by only focusing on your party's ideas and not seeing the other side of the aisle. So like here, what she's talking about is, say I'm a diehard Republican and I have strong conservative views, and I'm in an argument with a liberal Democrat, and he's making a point, and though the point that he is making might have strong facts behind it, supporting facts, since I'm a Republican and since my views are this strong, conservative, I might not agree with what they say just based on, the person that is saying it. Consequence number 3 is here we are more focused on how we are labeled rather than on the policy. For example, I'm a conservative in my views, and I have, on the right to bear arms, I believe people have the right to bear arms, but I also believe that individuals should be legally permitted to and held to a high accountability. Someone on my side would agree that I am, messing with their Second Amendment right whenever it comes to bearing arms, when I just think it's smart to, have a background check and stuff. That way people who are going to get the gun, they're reliable people to use them. Consequence number 4, this is the final one she talks about, is very crucial in my opinion. Instead of trying to win an argument based on policy beliefs, your goal is more on making, the other party ideas and making them look like a bad person. In my opinion, this is our political environment that we live in today, where policy is not important, being good or bad is. So, for instance, how a lot of our political guys, they don't really care about what one person has to say, but rather they care about, just who they are, and they'd rather make one party look bad instead of agreeing with what they have to say. So, the whole idea behind Chapter 1 is being able to have a constructive debate in an effort to reach the best decision of the people as a whole. So, as he talks about after you see the 4 consequences, these discussions should be based on the moral obligation we have towards one another rather than the political party we support. So, we should be more focused on what's being said instead of who's saying it, in other words. So one key point was the inclusion rule. Who is affected, who is involved, and what information and perspective they bring is something she talks about. We should look at who is being affected by what is going to happen, who is involved and what's going on, and what information and perspective, those people bring to the table should be key things taken in when an argument is being discussed. By including people who are like-minded and self-serving, we've missed the entire goal. As long as individuals can respectively control themselves, including individuals from opposing sides, can lead to the most beneficial outcome. So we should have people who agree for certain things, and then we should have other people who agree for certain things. And whenever they argue, they should come to a conclusion in the middle, instead of the four consequences, the last one, trying to just make one person look worse than the other. Miller states arguments about how we should argue interfere with demagoguery. In other words, demagoguery attempts to control the narrative. By establishing certain rules, everyone is able to contribute, and thus results in a decision or policy we can all agree on. So like I just said, we should, as she talks about, we should come to almost a medium, to where we're not so much worried about who we are voting for, but we should argue the rules of the debate and stuff like that, which is totally the opposite of what demagoguery is. And in doing this is going to help our nation and our political system get away from that. So another key point was making sure that we argue the correct points. This is basically root cause analysis we have to make sure we are arguing the correct questions. So many times in our arguments, we are missing what we are arguing for. By identifying the correct question, we are able to frame our argument to get policy change. The author used the example of the tire, and how if the car has, the wear and tear of a tire is based off whether or not the tires are getting old, that's a causable reason to change your tires. But if you're just doing it without knowing, the cause of what the tire is going flat or wearing down, and you just keep changing your tires, and you're not really fixing any problems, you're just covering them up for a little while they'll only unravel later on. By establishing this, we can solve the actual problem. So as long as we know, like what the main cause of these problems are, we are able to come to a conclusion and identify a solution for this problem. In summary, demagogues remove the ability to argue by dominating the narrative. For our democracy to work, both parties and leaders must be willing to lay down their identity and do what is best for the people and not the party. So, in conclusion, and summarize basically what I've just said, is we need to put away, our pride and who we think who we vote for based off our parties, and instead we need to really focus on what we're voting for and the facts that are behind it. So, thank you.